Watch me read this book called Giant Pandas by Gail Gibbons. Giant Pandas by Gail Gibbons. Misty, thick clouds hang over the mountain tops. A large black and white animal makes its way through a bamboo forest. It is a giant panda. Giant pandas live in the mountains of China. This is where giant pandas once lived. The dark yellow. This is where giant pandas live today. The red. The Chinese people call the giant panda Da Jiong Mao, meaning big bear cat. It looks like a bear and has long claws like a cat. Giant pandas are members of the bear family. Giant panda characteristics. Adult giant pandas are about 4 to 5 feet long and normally weigh about 200 pounds. Most of the time they move slowly, but if they want to, they can move at a fast trot. Their bodies are very flexible. The fur of a giant panda is thick, coarse, and oily to keep the panda's body warm and dry. The fur is about 2 inches long. Giant pandas have poor eyesight, but they have excellent senses of smell and hearing. In fact, pandas are hard to find in the wild because they can hide when they smell or hear people coming. A bark means hello. Growling or snorting means I'm frightened. Normally, giant pandas are shy and tend to stay by themselves. When they want to communicate with one another, they use about 11 different kinds of sounds. They bark, growl, squeal, and make other sounds to mean different things. Giant pandas also communicate by leaving their scent to tell other pandas they are in the area. They do this by rubbing a smelly liquid from glands under their tails onto rocks or trees. Thousands of years ago, giant pandas ate only meat, but over time, their diet changed to mostly plants, mainly bamboo. Occasionally, they eat grass, roots, vines, honey, or even meat. Bamboo. Because bamboo is not very nutritious, giant pandas must spend between 10 and 16 hours a day eating it in order to stay strong and healthy. The average panda eats about 27 pounds of bamboo in a single day. The thumb is a rigid extension. Claws. Giant pandas have 5 claws on each of their paws, and they also have a special thumb on their front paws. They use their thumbs and claws to grasp the bamboo. Jaws, teeth. Giant pandas use their big teeth and powerful jaws to crush and eat the bamboo stalks. They also eat the leaves. Giant pandas can be playful and athletic. They do somersaults and climb trees quite easily. Also, giant pandas can swim, holding their heads above water while they paddle with their legs. Giant pandas don't have a regular sleeping place. They sleep on the ground, in the base of a hollow tree, or wherever and whenever they feel tired. They sleep 2 to 4 hours at a time. Male and female giant pandas come together to mate in the spring. After mating, the male goes off on his own. The female makes a bed of bamboo, twigs, and grasses in a cave or among rocks or in a hollow tree. This place is called a den. Den. A habitat is where an animal lives in nature. Young giant pandas are called cubs. In autumn, about 5 months later, the mother panda gives birth to 1 or 2 babies called cubs. Immediately after giving birth, she begins nursing one of the cubs. A mother will raise only one cub at a time. Only one will survive. In their natural habitat, mothers usually give birth every 1 to 3 years. A cub is very small. It only weighs about 3 ounces and is about 6 ounces long. The mother, 6 inches long. The mother is about 900 times larger than her cub. It's amazing how gentle she can be. The cub has pink skin all over and some fuzzy white hair. Its cry sounds like a human baby. The mother holds her cub almost all the time. She won't leave to get food for herself for about 1 week after her cub's birth. In about 40 days, the cub opens its eyes. It has its black and white markings and is still helpless. When the mother wants to move her cub, she gently picks it up by its neck and carries it from place to place. At about 4 months old, the cub is able to crawl. At 7 months old, the cub can run and climb trees. It weighs about 20 pounds and has learned how to eat bamboo. At about 2 years old, the young giant panda weighs around 120 pounds. It has learned all it can from its mother. Now it is time for the young panda to live on its own. In another 2 years, it will be able to have its own young. Over the years, the number of giant pandas has become smaller because of the destruction of their natural habitat by people, accidental deaths in traps set for other animals, and the hunting of pandas for their fur. Because of their size, adult giant pandas have few natural enemies, except for people. Around 1900, there were about 65,000 giant pandas living in the wild. Today, there are fewer than 1,000. The people of China are trying to protect them. They have set aside large areas called reserves where giant pandas can live safely. Also, it is a crime to harm or kill a giant panda. In China and in a small number of other countries, scientists are trying to help increase the population of giant pandas. These pandas are cared for in captivity. The scientists try to encourage the pandas to give birth and care for their cubs. When the young giant pandas are capable of living on their own, some of them are released back into the wild nature reserves in China. Others are placed in zoos. Whenever there are giant pandas in a zoo, people love to come to see them. They look like big, chubby, black and white teddy bears that are very playful. It is so much fun watching them. Giant pandas are one of the rarest and most appealing animals in the world. Pandas, pandas, pandas. For years, scientists disagreed on what scientific family giant pandas belong to. Now it is agreed that they are members of the bear family. The biggest giant panda that was ever weighed was almost 400 pounds. In 1 year, a giant panda may eat about 10,000 pounds of bamboo. A giant panda can live to be 25 to 30 years old. Today, about 150 giant pandas live in captivity. It is difficult for scientists to breed and raise them, but they are learning more every year. China began trying to breed giant pandas in 1955. In September 1963, Ming Ming became the first cub born in captivity. There are only a few zoos outside of China that have giant pandas. All pandas live in zoos, are given two names, a Chinese custom that indicates love and affection. In 1972, China gave two giant pandas, Ling Ling and Sing Sing, to the Washington, D.C., the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. In 1936, Su Lin became the first giant panda to be brought to the United States. He was a popular attraction at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, Illinois. Beginning in January 2001, people lined up to see Tian Tian and Meishong at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. They had been flown there from the Wulong Giant Panda Reserve Center in China on a special plane called Panda 1. They were loaned for 10 years.